I am calling this meeting to order. This is the Parks and Environmental Sustainability Committee of the Whole meeting held on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2005, commencing at 4:32 p.m. Council members in attendance are Councilmember Anderson, Councilmember Stewart, Council Vice President Forsyth, Council President Kritzer. Joining us online is Councilmember Fields. Should Councilmember Salahuddin enter in, then I will announce him as he does. There are 4 action items to discuss, 3 that are Parks and Environmental Sustainability and 1 that was carried over from Public Safety last week, 2 items to get feedback on, and 2 informational items on the agenda today. As you can see, it is a packed full agenda, and we are expecting to take the full hour for the meeting, so I will be doing my very best to keep us on track. Now, the first item that we have on the agenda is the award for public Art Master Plan contract to Moore Icafano Goldsman, known as MIG, in the amount of $96,965. And joining us is Director Hamilton and Mr. Chris Weber. Hi, Director, welcome.
Good afternoon, City Council. I'm Lorraine Hamilton, the Parks Director, and I am joined today by Chris Weber, our Cultural Arts Supervisor, and he will be presenting this item today.
Yes, hello and thank you. Seeking approval of a public art master plan contract for Moore Icafano Goldsman. From now on, I'll call it MIG, in the amount of $96,965. MIG was selected from 9 strong applicants that went through our RFP process. They'll provide professional services in the development of public art master plan, including a thorough assessment of current programs, plus robust community engagement to ensure the plan aligns with the park plan, the Redmond 2050, and all of our other existing plans. And priorities, that collaborative process will create a strategic framework for future cultural arts programming. And we're hoping that this goes to the May 6th business meeting.
Wonderful. Council, do we have any questions or comments for Chris? Well, seeing none, I've got one quick one, and that's a curiosity one. Normally, what has been my experience, and that's been limited. However, it seems like there was a lot of interest in this. We had 9 bids come in. Is that high?
I believe so. Yeah, for other plans that have been coming around the same time, it's much higher.
Wonderful, because my actual question that I wanted to know was, what was driving the level of interest in this particular project?
That's a good question. I do know of half of the applicants were national, and half were local or regional. I do know that some of them did come directly from people who work with the city or know people, and so it was at least 3 of those groups did come from either people I knew or from people that other city staff knew. So I think that helped. And Arts Commissioner, I know, got one of them to apply. So outreach.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, seeing no further questions, Council, is there any reason why we should not have this go to consent? Looks good. We will see you then on the next business meeting. Council President.
Point of order, was the first item on the agenda pulled?
I was curious the same.
Council President, thank you. It was not pulled.
Okay, great. I thought I might have missed an email.
No, absolutely not. I switched to an incorrect tab. So thank you for bringing us back. Just for the record, we just went over the second item on the agenda. See, I told you I'm going to keep this meeting moving right along. And coming back to the first item then, before we go, is there any objection to this going to consent? Wonderful. Now let's back that on up and go back to the first item on the agenda, which is to award the Recreation Program Plan contract to Pros Consulting, Inc. in the amount of $74,255. Of course, Director Hamilton is remaining here, and now we get to welcome Erica Tua. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Again, Parks Director Lorraine Hamilton. The next item is a recreation program plan. Just for your information, this is the first time we have actually embarked on this plan, and is as a direct result of the continued growth of Redmond and the continued growth of our recreation programs and interests. And Erica Chua, our recreation manager, is going to present the rest of this item.
Hi, I'm Erica Chua. I'm the Recreation Manager, and we are requesting City Council approval to award a contract in the amount of $74,255 to Pros Consulting for professional service to develop a comprehensive recreation program plan. And as Director Hamilton said, this is the first time that we've developed such a plan. Pros Consulting was selected through a competitive procurement process. The city received 3 proposals, and Pros was chosen based on their demonstrated expertise, outstanding references, and strong knowledge of the CAPRA accreditation process, of which this plan is a key component. So the recreation program plan will provide a detailed assessment of the city's current recreation programs and include extensive community engagement. This ensures the plan is aligned with the needs and interests of Redmond residents, the city's adopted cost of service policy, and the park plan, along with other existing plans. And so through a collaborative process, Pros Consulting will help the city create a strategic framework to guide future recreation programming and service delivery. And this will come to council on May 6th.
Questions from council? Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to voice my support for this next step on this, not only to implement the comprehensive plan, but also the park plan, and I'm really looking forward to next steps on this. Thank you.
Council President?
I'm also looking forward to this and in support of moving this forward. Just one thing to note, I think, as we discussed a lot as we were looking at the park plan that I think will be important in this as well, and taking those themes forward, is thinking about how we make sure as we do the outreach that we reach a really great diversity of our community, and we really kind of make sure that, as I think we talked about this a lot at the park plan, of what kinds of amenities or what kind, and in this case, what kinds of services or programming do we want to offer as our community evolves, and as new folks come to our community, as kids grow and themes change. So being able to really take this moment to assess and vision out is going to be really great. But I would definitely encourage that as just something I wanted to highlight.
Councilmember Fields?
Yes, thank you. So what, give me 2 or 3 misses or changes that you want to see. In other words, what is driving the need for this? I heard you say that the city has grown. Council President mentioned, the change in interests or a change perhaps in our makeup diversity. But what is it that you don't know today that you will be much better off knowing at a high level than as a result of this contract?
That is a really great question, Councilmember Fields. So the city has never embarked on this planning effort before, and it is kind of a best practice for parks and recreation agencies to have a plan like this. And for me, what this is going to tell us is what is working well and what is not working well and what needs to shift, because I think that a lot of the decisions that we make right now are based on registration numbers, input we get through the park plan, input that we get through Q alerts or feedback from end of summer surveys, but we haven't done really this comprehensive deep dive into our recreation programming and what does the community want. And as Council President Kritzer mentioned about the diversity, I think that shift in the diversity of our community over the last 20, 25 years in particular has really shifted what perhaps our community needs. And I think that sometimes we are not providing some of the diversity of programming that we could. And so I do think it'll broaden our diversity, but it will also help us be more strategic and targeted, and have better data about the decisions that we're making. And it will, of course, be in line with our cost of service policy, which has already been passed.
Thank you, Director. I love your answer, and I love the intent of this. I'm also in support.
Thank you.
Council President?
Sorry, just one other question. In terms of the scope of this, does it includes also like city events envisioning, or is it
No,
just recreational programming?
it's just recreational programming. It's not city events.
Great. Well, maybe we'll pick up as we survey a little nuggets as well.
Any further questions or comments from the council? I'm very much looking forward to this. It's one thing for us to create ideas and plans and even policies around it, but when we are taking actual action around it, that's when it gets really exciting, because then we get to walk out what it is that we're talking about. So very, very happy about this. I'm also happy about the fact that it was brought up by a colleague about, like, what are we looking for? Well, sometimes when we're open to growth and doing something different or better, then there's a whole lot that, yeah, sure, we might know that we're missing the mark at, but then there's a whole plethora of things that we don't even know that we don't know. So I'm looking forward to seeing what an objective third eye from a consultant says, what their views are that we can bring back and put into action. Is there any objection for this going on to the consent agenda? Well, seeing none, we will see you at the next business meeting for this item. Moving on to our third item on our agenda today for action is the acceptance of a grant funding for cultural arts program in the amount of $72,000 from For Culture. Director Hamilton will be staying on, and welcome back, Chris Weber.
Great to be back. Thank you so much. City staff is seeking approval from City Council to authorize the mayor to accept a For Culture grant contract in the amount of $72,000. This grant will fund cultural arts projects, including the 6th Annual Public Art Intensive Eastside, and temporary public art exhibits at Downtown Redmond Art Walk, among other programs. This grant has historically awarded funds between $15,000 and $18,000 annually, but due to the launch of For Culture's Doors Open program, they were able to increase grant amounts for all of their grant programs, no matter where that money was coming from, which is exciting, which is why it's gone up to $72,000. And then this increase in funds comes at a great time, as we will already be asking the community what types of programs and art that they want in the community as part of our public art master plan. So that's exciting that worked out. And again, we're hoping to have this added on May 6th.
Council questions. Councilmember Anderson and then Councilmember Stewart.
This is a significant increase, and I'm curious if it will last for a longer time.
They have told us that we will get it for the next 3 years, $72,000.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. This is really exciting. My question was also regarding the increased award levels. Does this increase the amount of services or programming that folks might be, or the number of participants that might be able to participate, or is the additional awards helping to alleviate some of the strain on other funds?
All of the above is the hope, and I think, were you ready? I think some of it, especially for this year, it's going to be increasing the things we're already doing primarily, and then through that public art master planning, finding out where we should be, where those the best places to use it, especially over the next 2 years.
But there is no plan to use it to supplant other funding or relieve pressure on other funds. So it is intended to it will help us increase our services to community and art.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. Thank
Yep.
you, Director, and thank you, Chris.
Any further questions or comments from council? Could I, just a quick question, because Doors Open is a new organization. It did launch about, I think it was approved a year and a half ago. I think it was Christmas time or the holidays, winter holidays. At a very high level, can you just tell us about Doors Open?
Yes. So Doors Open is funding, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's millions, tens of millions of dollars that have been added annually for arts nonprofits specifically, and For Culture is stewarding that money. And For Culture is a King County funding agency for arts. And the Doors Open, it expands them a little bit. It's also for science, but it does go to nonprofits only. So we don't, as a city, we've been getting For Culture funds, but we don't get the Doors Open money. But For Culture also has 2 other buckets of money. They have a 1%, and they also have a tourism money, and but because they've taken all the nonprofits out of those other 2 buckets of money, they now have more in those, and that's why we were able to get more money.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any objection for this going to consent for our next business meeting? Well, seeing none, we will see this item back on May 6th. Thank you. Moving on to our fourth action item on the agenda, we are going to be switching over to Deputy Chief Despain, and Fire Chief Shepard is joining us today. And we're going to be discussing a contract with Leasing 2 for the financing of fire apparatus. Believe that Deputy Chief Quirconi had brought this to us fairly recently. We've also discussed this one other time, so I believe that this is our third touch on this. Is that correct?
There have been several. I don't know if it's the second or third.
Well, Chief, Deputy Chief, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. Once again, I'm Fire Chief Adrian Shepard, and with me this evening is Deputy Chief Mike Despain. And we're before you this evening to reintroduce the item of the Leasing 2 agreement for our fire apparatus. And our ask is that we put this on the May 6th agenda. And with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Mike Despain to provide further detail.
Thank you, Chief. Maybe as a little bit of background, what happened was in 2021, there was two engines that were bought by previous fire administration that are not the best brand. And so when they showed up, they were not in the best condition. It took us months to even put them in service. And that was a purchase that we decided to move to a lease to rent so we can give them back. And what we did was we went back to council in the last budget to ask for a replacement engine. So that's probably a little bit of the background. What we're saying now is because we need to order the engines to replace the ones that are not the best engines to have, and because we needed to replace a few more apparatus, the budget allowed us to purchase those, but we weren't going to be able to purchase them all at once and get the best cost on that, because they'll lower the cost due to volume and if you prepay. And so by paying more up front, you get a much lower cost. Well, what we're tracing is the cost of buying apparatus is going up about 8.75% per year, which is way more than typical inflation. So what we wanted to do was basically do a lease purchase. So these would be, we would order the engines right away. They'll be ours at the end of the payment because we're buying the right brand and the right type. But we can order them now, they will show up, and we'll have them in service quicker than if we did it the other way, and the other way would be more expensive. So we're trying to save some money, get them here quicker. And just as a note, as recently as 6-8 months ago, we were still borrowing fire apparatus from other agencies because we were kind of that far down. So this will get us back to healthy. So once we do this purchase, the frontline fleet will be very healthy, will be fine. We'll still have a problem with reserve fleet, meaning when the primary one goes out of service, the backup will still be a little sketchy for a while. But at some point in time, these will age to the point we'll buy new ones, then we'll have a healthy reserve. So that's kind of the bigger picture, but today is strictly just allowing us to contract with this agency to do a lease purchase for 10 years.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thank you. My only question is, I know we approved this in the budget. Is the budget number any different than, do you anticipate it to be any different because of the terms shifting?
No, because what's not reflected in here is we actually canceled an order from the 2021 order. So we didn't pay full price for the two engines that came in. We're just paying a monthly rate while we use them. And during the months where they were out of service, the payments stopped. So actually we've saved quite a bit of money. Almost $800,000 of that is we didn't spend. So it goes back into the apparatus fund. So the fund is going to be fine. It's just more of, it's not enough to cover if order all this apparatus at once. That's what we're just trying to do. So.
All right, thanks.
Councilmember Fields and Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I understand the solution that you've created and how you're mitigating what went wrong on the initial purchases. My question is not really directly related to this action item, but I would like to know what lessons learned did you get from the overall, all of these transactions put together? And I know that Director Cochran from the Finance Department is initiating a a review and an analysis of our purchasing practices and with an intent to improve that. So will you be working or sharing the lessons learned in that work as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilmember Fields. And I think your question is your answer. What we found is that there are greater efficiencies and better ways of actually making purchases of large ticket items such as apparatus. And so working closely with the finance department and with the greater city team, Chief Despain was able to bring together a purchasing program that lessened the upfront burden, smoothed that number across the number of years, and allowed us to actually make our fleet healthy while at the same time reducing costs. So it's been a win all the way around, and it certainly has been a journey as far as the learning lesson for us on how to secure apparatus to make sure that we're able to keep a healthy fleet capable of response.
And as I think, as you said, as going forward, other departments and your own department will benefit from the lessons learned and the review of the practices.
Agreed.
Is that fair?
Yes.
And by the way, I knew that the answer was embedded in my question, but I wanted to hear it from you. So thank you.
Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing this forward. I have a few questions, and I probably should have called you before today's meeting, so I may need a little bit of follow-up on this if we don't get to all of this today. I do remember us putting in the budget the dollars to replace some fire engines, to order new apparatus. I don't remember the story about the past the purchases that didn't go quite right. And that could be sometimes in this job, we hear a lot of things late at night and not everything sticks long term. So that could be on me, but that in this moment is feeling like a little bit of new information. I have a couple of questions about what's in front of us. And the first one is, what about the connection to the fleet study? We are on our way to putting our first EV engine into service. My understanding is it's not quite there yet. And then the engines that we are proposing to lease to own over the next 10 years, that was one of the questions you clarified for me today, those would not be electric. So how did the fleet study evaluate those particular apparatus and their potential for being able to be refueled?
Absolutely. And I'll turn part of the question over to Chief Despain, but the first part of your question, I believe for the apparatus, without saying the name, the previous apparatus that we had, I believe that predated your time on council, so maybe that's why you weren't informed. It took us quite some time to actually receive those. I believe the purchases were back in 2021. My apologies for not keeping you apprised of that whole process. As far as our fleet and how it's going to mature over the the next couple of generations of fleet, we're not slow walking, but we want to step lightly into the electrification of our fleet. And so while we're bringing in an electric apparatus, and I think we have intentions of bringing in a second electric apparatus as well, as indicated through Chief Despain's comments earlier, we still have an unhealthy fleet, so we do anticipate bringing in apparatus that should be able to age appropriately and be a good backup. As you may be aware, we're not there technology-wise as far as having a fleet of all-electric vehicles that are capable of a wider response. So particular to the city of Redmond, we can probably keep an electric engine inside the city. It would not be wise for us to deploy that into the greater region. And so when we go out and we look at new apparatus, we're looking at our capabilities not only here locally, but how we can be a resource for the city, for the region, and then for any kind of calls outside our area. So hopefully that in part answers your question, and Chief Despain, if you have any further.
Well, I think the fleet study had to do both with the heavy fleet and the light fleet. So the light fleet was way more available. It's way more nimble to transition to electric, and that's what we're doing. The heavy equipment, just like the chief said, we need to balance that a little bit. I don't think the technology's there to do the whole fleet yet. And the other issue is cost. We don't have enough money to electrify everything because it is double the cost. So this strategy was basically replacing a diesel engine with a diesel engine, and then the larger apparatus isn't electrified yet. The larger trucks, that technology is not available yet. However, there's other apparatuses that we are authorized to order, but we're holding it because we believe there's some grant money that may be like in October, so we're holding that order until October. We would come back to council, obviously, because it's a grant to do that. So it is part of this, we haven't abandoned it, it's just this is the strategy that's not electric, and then there's a part that is electric, and we would come back to you at a later date once we know for sure that funding is available.
Thank you. I certainly don't want to monopolize conversation, so I think I will reach out with a follow-up on a couple of the items and to make sure that I'm able to get those questions answered as it relates to the packet materials moving forward. And I do appreciate you both in your response. Council probably also didn't authorize enough money for you to have a bunch of EVs. So that was a decision we made in the budget last fall. So that conversation we probably already had too. But in terms of the packet materials for this item moving forward, a couple things. It'd be helpful to know if this was a sole source situation because it looked to me like it was, but I couldn't quite tell. And I'm curious, like, why a company in Florida? Is that the leasing agent, it looks like, is in Florida, but maybe not. Anyway, I'm a little bit interested in who this agent is that we are getting into business with. And some of the packet materials just aren't complete. The letter in Exhibit 2 from our special counsel is not actually even, it's not even identifying who the special counsel is. So there's a few things that need to be finished before we can probably have this item completed, but those are details. Thanks.
Thank you for the feedback.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Understanding that Councilmember Stewart is not complete yet for this to go to consent, are there any other council members who also would not like this to go to consent just yet? Councilmember Stewart?
I'm fine going to consent, and I will personally follow up with the
wonderful.
staff, because I should have done it before this meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Fields.
I think that Councilmember Stewart asked some really good questions, and I think that those answers should be provided to the entirety of council. If we get the answers and when we get to consent, the answers aren't enough, I will pull the item. But I do track with Councilmember Stewart's questions, and I have concerns.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. Are any other comments or questions from council at this time? Great. Deputy Chief, once those get answered, then we will still be seeing this on May 6th. We'll see you then.
Thank you much. Appreciate your time.
Moving on to our feedback for study session part of our agenda today. We will be taking a look at Redmond 2050, the 2025 Code Package, Part 3, Design Standards, and the 2025 Housing Amendments. Joining us today is Director Helen, and Ian Lefcourt, and Becky Fry. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Good evening. Presiding Officer Nueva Camina, council members, it's good to see you. Today we are providing an update of the Redmond 2050 Code Package Part 3. We'll be holding study sessions on this item in May, and the content includes design standard updates to transition from suburb to city, modernization and streamlining of standards, and compliance with recent state law changes. Other components of this package include minor updates to several chapters to coordinate with other edits being made in the 2025 code updates, such as zoning name changes and definition updates. The PC recommendation and report on these updates are anticipated to be approved tomorrow night, and when we get to it, Becky Fry will be talking more about those details. The housing amendments are also in proposed to improve clarity, support consistency, implement middle housing requirements, and comply with state legislation. And the Planning Commission recommendation and report was completed on April 9th, and I sent that out for council early review last week without a signature, but we are getting that signed tomorrow night as well. So the next packet you receive will have a complete report with signatures attached. Finally, staff is also proposing minor amendments to the Redmond Municipal Code regarding impact fees. That's in Title 3, Chapter 3.10, and the Redmond Municipal Code Chapter 7.04 that addresses animal control, again, to correct some errors and to account for changes to zoning name changes. And tonight, I am joined by Becky Fry and Ian Lefcourt, and I'm going to hand the microphone over to Becky to talk about design standards.
Thank you. We're excited again to come back and share another update on where we're at with the 2025 code package. Again, as Director Helen mentions, this is amendments that represent a really significant overhaul to our design standards themselves, but also a significant reformatting of the Redmond zoning code. We're here to provide an update of what we've heard from the commission and the community so far and prepare for your study sessions in May. We have heard a lot of very supportive comments about the amendments, including both the content and the structure itself. The community and designers are excited about the code flexibility and creativity and the potential for more creativity in our built environment. The community feedback highlighted areas where we needed some more clarity and flexibility. We were able to incorporate many updates that addressed their desires, but also still maintaining alignment with city goals. We also added additional tools in this latest update, additional cross-references, some examples, how the design standards align with the Green Building Program and other processes, integration with the incentive program as well. So we provided a lot more resources to make sure people understand the whole of how the design standards work within the context. This most recent draft update also included some additional review and refinement of the purpose statements, the applicability statements, and the alternative design compliance, just to make sure that it's clear across the board on all of those, so that internal and external expectations are the same. We also wanted to provide you with a quick update. We've recently provided status updates on this code package to several key stakeholder groups on the code package, including the Snoqualmie-Trami Council and local disabilities and mass timber stakeholders. And we've received some very, very positive feedback and excitement that we're nearing adoption of these updates that they were integrally a part of creating. So we've got a lot of people who are looking forward to the adoption of this package. The Planning Commission did emphasize that they feel that we have a need for a very clear approval process for unique, iconic, new landmark buildings, especially within our centers and cultural districts. And so a part of their recommendation to council is a continued look at if we do need an alternative design compliance for most or all standards, and is there a different process? Do we need to do some additional benchmark studying? And so as we move forward with future packages of design standard updates, which we're kicking off the next one immediately, to continue that as a part of the discussion. And so I'll hand it over to Ian to talk about the housing amendments.
Thank you, Becky. The housing amendments primarily talk about three different topics: middle housing implementation, legislative compliance, and then residential adjustments, kind of our other bucket. The middle housing implementation is our continued efforts to try and make middle housing happen. That's going to include amendments to municipal code standards, but in front of you in this package are further zoning code amendments, and they primarily focus on reducing transportation and access barriers. The legislative compliance bucket has two pieces of state legislation that jurisdictions need to comply with. The amendments here comply with those pieces of legislation. Bill 1042 has a list of things that local jurisdictions cannot impose on buildings for converting from non-residential use to residential use. So the amendments now have that list of things saying we won't do that. Bill 1998 requires jurisdictions to allow co-living or residential suite type housing in certain areas. The amendments say you can now do that in those certain areas. And then the third bucket are residential adjustments. This is where most of the volume of the actual text amendments occur. And the range of what these amendments are is quite big. In some cases, it is literally as simple as adding the phrase middle housing to a table or to another piece that helps activate the code. In other cases, it's updating those zoning names, as Director Helen mentioned earlier. A lot of cleanups, errors, consistencies, making sure everything works together. There are two proposed changes that are a little bit more substantive that we wanted to highlight as part of this bucket, and they relate to changes to the affordability requirements of the neighborhood residential affordability payment in lieu process. We are proposing consolidating the three categories for payment in lieu into one. Some developments in the neighborhood residential zone are required to make a payment in lieu rather than providing that on-site affordable housing unit. The purpose of this is so that smaller developments wouldn't have to round up, have to provide that on-site, and thus make the entire development infeasible. The PIL is designed to reflect that fractional, that kind of portion of affordable housing that would be provided from an on-site and converting that into a monetary amount that is provided to the city. Currently, the PIL is calculated based on a per square foot rate with three separate rate categories, and the categories correspond to different building types: detached, attached horizontally, and attached vertically. Because those different buildings often have different market sales prices, households that are served, and development costs. The proposal consolidates the three categories into one, so there will just be a single uniform PIL rate. This change reduces confusion about which category a project falls into, which takes a lot of staff and customer time to discuss and resolve. The proposed consolidated PIL rate category would be the same as the current PIL rate for detached dwelling units, about $30 per square foot, excuse me. And then we are proposing a phase-in for that payment in lieu. This approach will allow early adopters a discount on the total obligation owed to the city to help incentivize people moving through the process and get used to this new tool. This is a similar approach to what we've used in other areas, for example, the phase-in of affordable housing units in Overlake, and also how we're approaching our new school impact fees, a gradual stepping into the pool rather than jumping in all at once. Planning Commission and community conversations around the housing amendments have been supportive. Wasn't a lot of community conversation, but what we did receive, thumbs up on it. No major issues were identified. Most discussion was staff providing background context or information. And we have already discussed the timeline for this agenda item, so I'll turn it over to Director Helen.
Thank you, Ian. So I just wanted to add a couple of comments about the payment in lieu, and it was based on feedback we heard basically from the council and from the public. Some people were surprised by the fee in lieu. Others, I think even the council said, oh, we didn't remember. I mean, it was thousands of pages of adoptions. So we actually did meet with master builders and many of the new developers that are coming into town that are wanting to build things like smaller units or units with an ADU and a detached ADU. And one of the scenarios was that they had purchased a piece of property last year and the market hadn't responded to all of the references that were in the code so far. They were able to renegotiate the market price on their lot. But when we met with the group of master builders as a whole, they talked about the impact that it would have in the short term, given the uncertainty that has been created since we adopted all of this package in November with the unpredictability of tariffs, material costs, things like that. So we are going to propose a revision to the fee ordinance, a fee resolution that will come to council with the rest of this package that would, as Ian noted, consolidate the housing, the fee into a single fee. What you adopted had a $30 fee and a $40 fee, depending on which type of housing unit was being constructed. And what we would propose is that we consolidate that for simplification and ease of administration, but then also phase it in. So, for instance, the first year would be a 25% of the fee destination that we're trying to get to. The second year would be 50%, and the third year would be the full percent. It would allow the market to adjust over time. So that is another proposal that is not in your packet, but one that we are planning to bring forward as part of the amendments that we talk about in May.
Council, things that you'd like to have covered in our study session on this. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought up the tariffs because that relates directly to one of my questions. I know there's a lot of changes around mass timber, and I know that's going to be a big issue since we get a lot of our timber from Canada and tariffs. So just if we could have a brief, maybe insights as to what we see might be coming with the timber industry, if we convert to using American timber, is there a longevity concern because that timber is not quite as hardened? Just a lot of concerns around that one specific area for me. I'd love to see more about the weather protection enhancements that I noticed in one of the many code sections. I've recently had a lot of folks ask me why some of those awnings and overhangings have gaps. So I'm hoping we're fixing for that. I'm assuming we are, but just wanted to note that one. And then I noticed we deleted public corridors, and just a brief touch on that would be appreciative for me. And then on the legislation 1042, just want to make sure that elevator size aspect of that doesn't conflict with ADA standards.
Thank you. Other questions or feedback for a study session? Council President Kritzer.
First, one quick question. So the amendments that you just mentioned, Director Helen, will that be covered at this upcoming study session?
I can provide those during one of the May study sessions. We're just drafting the resolution now.
Okay, great.
But yes, we will cover it. It wouldn't be adopted until the amendments are adopted in June.
Okay.
But the other proposal is to also make it applicable all of this year. So if anyone paid this year, they would get a refund so that everyone who paid this year would pay 25%.
Great.
If adopted by council.
Great. If you could provide maybe a slide or two for us for the study session to explain what you just said in words. I would also actually say, I think what you both shared just now was really great. If there's any sort of kind of easy to digest summary that also we could have the public be able to see, since there's a lot of pages in all of here, but to be able to understand, especially I think, Ian, some of the things that you were highlighting would be very helpful for us to be able to have as a tool in the study session, just to be able to ground some of those discussions, and for us to be able to go back and reference as we deep dive into some of these questions. So would appreciate that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Councilmember Stewart, and then after that, I'm going to ask if you have other questions to email them directly for the sake of time.
Great, thank you. I agree with the wayfinding that is needed in the study session so that we can make sure we're getting the feedback to you all that you need from us and that we're not missing anything, because there is a lot here and it's kind of been piece by piece. So thank you, Director Helen, for sending out that earlier packet in our email, and I will read that and send in any additional questions per the chair's request. On the fee in lieu and the middle housing, when I'll admit the details I don't have a full grasp on because we just heard them. But when I'm listening to that conversation, what I'm listening for, and this I think applies to the entire package here, is how does this proposal impact our ability to deliver the housing at the affordability levels we just agreed to in the comp plan? So if we can show that to ourselves in the study session, I think that would be very, very helpful. One of the other topics that I'm interested in hearing more about during the study session is the alternative design compliance related to cultural district features in 2158. I saw this referenced in the table, and we haven't discussed the cultural districts much in this at the council level. I know the Planning Commission did a ton of work on this. But what can we expect? Here's the overarching question. What can we expect to be distinct and unique as a result of this package in our cultural districts? And what do we not yet know or have to work on in order to complete that work? Thank you.
Director, we're looking forward to seeing this back for our study session on May 13th, and be on the lookout for any further questions from council. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our second feedback for study session is Environmental Sustainability Action Plan 2025 Refresh. Joining us is Jenny Liebeck as our Sustainability Manager. Hi, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Just last month in March, we kicked off the ESAP refresh process. So we committed to update that plan every 5 years, and 2025 is that year. So the goal for the refresh process is to prioritize actions for the next 5 years, to recalibrate the plan in alignment with Redmond 2050, and to inspire action through our outreach and engagement efforts. And so we have our very first study session scheduled with council for May 13th. And so we'll use that study session to update council on our engagement approach, discuss the community partnerships that we're cultivating to support that work, and provide an update on the climate analysis work that underpins the whole ESAP refresh. So again, this is the first conversation that we'll have with council. And so I realized that there was no presentation attached for you all to review today, but I am looking just to see if there are any of those kind of higher level questions you want to make sure that we're covering in this first conversation together. Again, knowing that there will be subsequent study sessions where we're going to dive in deeper on more of the meaty actions and things like that. But again, this is kind of our baseline as we launch this process together.
Council questions? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Appreciate your work on this. The main thing that I'll be listening for as we get going on this, well, not the main thing, there's a few things, but one of the things I want to make sure we don't miss is the connection between this ESAP update right now in 2025 and our goals around net zero emissions for municipal operations by 2030, and making sure that we are remaining on track to achieve that. Thanks.
Thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. Just wanted to highlight for you, since we haven't completed our council retreat notes, that we identified 2 things that we'd like to move forward in the ESAP, which was the composting program for multifamily residences, and our waste reduction single-use food service policy came up as items that we would like to bring closer to the nearer timeline than we had them.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
Yeah, thank you. Jenny, you're not going to be surprised by my request. I've mentioned it a few times over the years. When we created the emergency declaration and the ESAP way back when, one of the key, most important elements of it, in my mind, is that we become a partner in a global effort to improve the health of our planet and prevent catastrophic climate change. And I know that we do a lot of things. I hear it and recognize all of the things that the mayor does and what we've done as a city. But I really think it's time that we step up our partnership throughout with all our local businesses, that we really make this an important part of who we are in Redmond, that we want the world to understand that we are there, and that we want some significant steps taken from a global perspective, and that we are part of that voice. So whatever is in this next plan that will up that advocacy and up that voice and express our belief of the urgency of this, I would love to see that.
Any further questions or comments from the council? Council President Kritzer?
Thank you. Happy Earth Day, Ms. Liebeck. Just wanted to say, I think I'm excited for this. I think that the thing that I'm most interested in is how this update of the plan we can use, especially given the kind of more near-term scope that we're looking at, can align with doing some budgetary planning as well, so that we not only kind of set our to-do list for the nearer term, but we set our to-fund list as well.
Wonderful. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, Jenny, for your work on this. Looking forward to our study session on this on the 13th. Thank you. Moving into the informational section of this, we do have 2 items to get through, council. We've got 8 minutes to do so. We're going to quickly get through the Energy Smart East Side Residential Electrification Program. Ms. Jenny Liebeck is going to continue on. Once we get through this, if it does not go past 8 minutes long, then we're going to need a motion to extend the meeting for an additional 5 minutes. Are we ambitious? Okay, wonderful. I was just informed that we don't need a motion, so there we go.
We'll still try and be.
Yes, please, and thank you.
Okay. So good evening again, Council. So again, Energy Smart East Side 2024 program update. So existing buildings in Redmond actually account for our largest source of emissions. And so back actually in 2022, we partnered with the cities of Bellevue, Issaquah, Kirkland, Mercer Island, and later Sammamish to launch a regional heat pump campaign or heat pump program, so we can help decarbonize some of our existing single-family homes. And so I'm joined here tonight by Sarah Phillips. She is actually a shared position amongst those East Side cities to help push and run an amazing program called Energy Smart East Side. And so she is again here to share some of those 2024 highlights and successes from that program.
All right, thank you so much. Now I'm on. Okay, so thank you so much for having me. This will be an exercise in speed reading, but I'm up for the challenge. It's Earth Day, great day to talk about energy efficiency programs and to share the update from the past year on Energy Smart East Side. As Jenny mentioned, this is one of Redmond's key strategies towards meeting your 2050 net reduction in emissions goals. Part of that is grounded in 25% of emissions are related to energy use in the home, natural gas combustion for heat and space heating, heat and water heating are a massive component of that. As you guys know, we do a periodic inventory of greenhouse gas emissions, and if you were to forecast out to 2050 and see what's left in a do-nothing scenario, natural gas emissions make up a lot of what's left to still deal with if we don't take action on this. So it's one of the most actionable things we can do at a local level to try to meet those goals. So sorry, I go back to where you took some of my thunder. Energy Smart East Side today is primarily a heat pump incentive program. We help residents of Redmond learn about the benefit of heat pumps, feel confident in taking action, and we offer incentives that help residents afford the upgrade. The impact of our work is showing up in our permit data, which is really exciting. Last year, we scaled the Energy Smart East Side program from a pilot substantially. We really ramped up our marketing efforts. And in line with that, we saw the percent of permitted residential HVAC systems that are heat pumps grow by a full 5 percentage points after really being relatively flat the year prior. And the impact in Redmond was even bigger, where the percent of heat pumps installed increased from 58% in 2023 to 65% in 2024. And we see Redmond continuing to lead the East Side in our permit data in the first 3 months of this year. Our target is to raise the adoption rate another 5% across the East Side in 2025. And ultimately, we want to support market transformation away from gas heating to heat pumps by 2032, with the thought process there that based on the life cycle of a furnace, this would result in almost complete transition off of gas for space heating by 2050. Our program just celebrated the 500th heat pump install using an ESE incentive, 75% of which were in low and moderate income homes. That's across our program. This includes 9 homes in the Friendly Village Mobile Home Park and all 18 units of the Terrace Hill Affordable Housing Building. Hundreds more have visited our website, attended a workshop, visited with us at tabling events, or scheduled a one-on-one energy advisor meeting. A Redmond condo owner I met at a heat pump workshop is a great example of the kinds of households we help. Newly single, she had just moved to the area and was trying to navigate a number of home improvement projects, including considering a heat pump for the first time. She attended a workshop, later scheduled a one-on-one advisor appointment, got a list of clarifying questions to be able to ask contractors, and really let us know that then she felt confident in moving forward, and we did see her show up in our permit report, so she ultimately converted to a heat pump. An important byproduct of all of this activity is the boost to our local economy, and importantly, the skilled electrical workforce. Incentives used by residents in 2024 resulted over $7.5 million in local HVAC business, which helped companies like All Climate Heating and Cooling, which is located here in Redmond. As you might know, rising interest rates can have a dampening effect on doing home improvement projects, but incentives like our program were able to drive $1.5 million worth of business for All Climate in an environment where HVAC companies were laying people off last year, skilled workers that we need to be able to do the transition to all-electric homes. They were able to keep their teams busy. Supporting all of the work we did last year was $5.6 million in state and utility grant funding that we were able to bring in as a match to city contributions. These grant funds allowed us to offer full cost coverage heat pumps to homeowners below 80% area median income, adult family homes serving Medicaid patients, and significant heat pump rebates to moderate income households under 150% area median income. Based on current proposed state budgets, we do anticipate having the opportunity to apply for another $2.5 million in grant funding by the end of this year. We had a lot of lessons learned as we scaled the program up, and we're weaving those into 3 key strategies to help us increase heat pump adoption further this year. Number 1 is relying on communicating with trusted advisors. We've just stood up a volunteer advisory program. It's multilingual. We've seen them now deployed out to community events. I walk by, they're having conversations in Chinese. It's fantastic. And we're also working with local CBOs to help connect to different community groups. Expanding access to rebates by offering more brands of heat pumps in our program, and also including increasing the community discount from $500 to $1,000, and making discovery and utilization of rebates as simple as possible. And we do that by partnering with the county, the state, and the local utility to make sure our incentives are aligned and can be stacked with contractors. We do anticipate some headwinds this year, and it's possible that external events could temporarily flatten the adoption curve. The biggest challenge remains costs. Heat pumps that heat and cool the entire home are a $20 to $30K investment, including installation, and equipment accounts for about 1/3 of that cost. We expect costs to go up 7 to 10% this year based on the conversion to more environmentally friendly refrigerants coupled with uncertain impacts of tariffs. Interest rates remain high, and that can create barriers for moderate income households to finance key upgrades, and that can result in either project deferment or fallback to less expensive alternatives like gas furnaces. And finally, I think the bomb cyclone is still top of mind, and there remains some hesitation in thinking about what happens in an extended power outage. We do educate residents on how to think about that, but it would expect to have that a little bit of a short-term dampening effect. All that said, this is a long-term project, and our research indicates that homeowners sometimes need up to 2 years to be able to go from I'm curious about something to I'm serious about it. So we'll continue to support them along that customer journey. In addition to building on the momentum to drive heat pump adoption, we're working on long-term strategy on how to support the community in further reducing residential greenhouse gas emissions, and we do expect to have some recommendations around that to share later this summer, what an expansion of the program could look like, how we might fund it, and organize for that. Thanks for allowing us to provide this program update. I'm happy to answer any questions if we have time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for being back here in chambers with us. There was something that you had pointed out that I deeply appreciate. There were things that you mentioned that I completely expected to hear from, but the thing that I deeply appreciate is how you articulated how the decisions that we make at a micro local level, the impacts that they have, including our local economy and especially with our workforce. So thank you for calling that out. Council, questions or comments? Council Vice President Forsyth and then Council Member Anderson.
Thank you. I just want to put this bug in your ear to help us get to that additional 5%. And you were talking about ideas later. I know that EV infrastructure has a bill at the state level that says that HOAs cannot prohibit implementation. I think we need the same bill for heat pumps. I know that some folks in my HOA community have been denied the ability to implement a heat pump, and I think having that same level of legislative setting, it would be very impactful for this initiative. So take that, run with it, do what you will.
There was legislation passed last year, and actually, if you contact me, I'm happy to work with your HOA on educating them related to that.
Absolutely do that. Thank you.
Legislation.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you so much for the very interesting report. I'm actually really interested in hearing a little more about the conversion goal to electric in the long term. I saw that the scope of that goal is 65% or 100% by 2032. Can you clarify that? And then where are we at now?
All of the east side is at 59% today. Our goal for this year is to see if we can get that to 65%, with the ultimate goal that market transformation is just about there by 2032. It's super ambitious.
That's great.
That's what we're aiming for.
Awesome. And just curious, the goal is great and the percentage is great to understand. Do we have a number of units or residences that you can kind of give us an idea of qualifying?
In the city of Redmond, if you think about particularly the problem of converting off of natural gas, about 600 households are needing to, their furnaces are at end of life per year. And so that's kind of the opportunity that we're looking at. And you see that show up in the permit data.
And that's for full east side or just Redmond?
That's just Redmond.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Kritzer.
So some households, I know when they convert to heat pumps, also do like a backup gas furnace. When we're counting in the data households that are doing this conversion, do those count as fully converted, or how do you count those types of households?
Great question. We are counting both hybrid heat pumps and heat pumps in the heat pump category because those hybrid heat pumps are still carrying a lot of that heating load. Right now, what we see is about 60% of permitted heat pumps are just straight up like standalone heat pumps, and about 40% are hybrid heat pumps. There is sort of a transition period where people get comfortable with making the full leap. It's kind of like going from a gas-powered car to a Prius to a full EV. So we're still in that transition moment, particularly people that experience frequent power outages where they live. Some of them are more nervous about going fully electric.
Wonderful. Any other questions or comments from the council? Again, Sarah, thank you for joining us back here in chambers. It's great to see you. Thanks for the update.
Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Moving on to the final item on our agenda is the Environmental Sustainability Action Plan update for April 2025, otherwise known as ESAP. Jenny Liebeck is staying on with us.
I know you. We can be brief with this because I believe you have also the Public Works item. So I just wanted to ask, did you want us to?
We do.
Did you want us to follow up with any of this via writing, or are we okay just to take a few minutes here to give you all a quick update?
Quick check-in with council. Seeing thumbs up. Okay, come on up.
Perfect. Okay, so we have the ESAP implementation update this evening, but we're highlighting two efforts specifically. So we have Ryan Edwardson here from Finance to talk about our direct pay application. This is a federal program, so he'll speak to that here in a second, as well as Tristan Osborne from Public Works, who's here to share more about the EV street sweeper evaluation. Thanks to your question, Councilmember Forsyth. So I hand it over to Ryan to speak about our direct pay work.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. I'm Ryan Edwardson in finance. I'm a financial analyst. We got wind of a new revenue source available to the city that is related to environmental sustainability. You may or may not know that the city does not pay income taxes and therefore does not file with the IRS. Mostly that's a good thing, but it does stop us from getting the benefit that private industry is able to get in the form of tax credits for environmentally sustainable assets and infrastructure. So under the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRS now has a program, and this is going for 10 years, so until 2032, where they're able to give us, in lieu of tax credits, because we still will not be filing income taxes, in lieu of those tax credits, they'll be able to pay us directly cash for reimbursements for green infrastructure and green assets that we put in place. So the good side of this is that administratively it's very simple, much simpler than a grant, fewer administrative requirements. However, the scope of assets is quite narrow, and there are even restrictions within the categories of assets that we can get reimbursements for. So I would say we will mostly benefit from solar panels, electric vehicles, and charging stations. Those are probably the top three that the city will be able to kind of easily benefit from this program. So what we've done so far is gone around and spoken to some key players as far as what will, within the city, as far as what will fall under this program. So we've talked to Public Works, finance folks, mainly CIP and Fleet. So we were able to find 8 electric vehicles and the solar panels on top of the Redmond Senior and Community Center are all available for reimbursement from the IRS. So we are now working on getting all the supporting documentation. We have all the vehicle supporting documentation, working on the last bit for the Redmond Senior and Community Center solar panels. And yeah, we're ready to file our taxes and get some money back from the IRS. And that's all I have, if you have any questions.
Wonderful. Council President.
Is that program, those funds are unfrozen at the moment?
As far as I know. I haven't heard anything. So we're working with, actually, luckily, we're able to have a good layer of, I guess, cushion from this work because the Washington State knew that cities had never filed income taxes before. And so they actually set up this program called SETCAP, and I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but they are providing us all assistance with filing our taxes. So they have set us up with consultants, attorneys, our people who are filing our taxes, so Lawyers for Good Government, and then Giraffe Financial to actually do our filing. So all I have to do, all we are doing on our side is collecting data and then giving it to a third party to take care of it. So I will say that's a long way of saying I do not know. But that is this, I would say this program is at serious risk because the Inflation Reduction Act has already been put on the table for a cut. So I've tried to get some kind of assurance from this Lawyers for Good Government group about how long they think it will go. And of course, they're hesitant to give a solid answer. They said to me at least through the end of 2025, which means we'll be able to get reimbursement for assets that we put into place in 2025.
Great. Well, thank you for the work on it, and hopefully it'll endure so we can take advantage of the good work you've done.
It's a really great program. I hope so.
Thank you for that. Council President Stewart.
Councilmember Stewart. Thank you. Thanks so much, Ryan. Really great to hear your perspective on this. In a second, I'm going to ask when our applications for those credits will be completed. And just to update the council, for those who have been following along with the notes that I've been sending from my committee work at the National League of Cities, this has been the #1 topic. The communication that we've had, even the latest this week on that, is that the dollars are still there, but to apply really quickly because the people processing the dollars are dwindling kind of by the day. So Ryan, do you have a sense of when our applications will be complete?
That's tough. We are kind of waiting for one last piece, and that piece has been the most difficult to get because the way we are invoiced for large projects like the Redmond Senior and Community Center, there isn't just a specific invoice saying, oh, this is how much the solar costed on that building. So that is what we're working on now. Our hope is to file before the 15th, which is the deadline, and if we don't, we will be able to ask for an extension. But yeah, right now, before the 15th, I will say I'm confident, but unless we can get certain information from like contractors or subcontractors, that will not happen.
Okay, great. Thank you. And if you could just let the council know, and it could be a quick email, are we applying for the full credit for the full value of the solar panels? The reason I'm asking is because there was a community campaign to raise the dollars for those solar panels, and I don't know if the campaign covered the full cost, but anyway, we should have a good understanding of that situation.
Yeah, luckily with this program, there are very few stipulations as far as what we can get back from the IRS. It's 30 to 70% of the total cost, but it cannot go above the total cost, as far as restricted funding goes. So if we were to receive grants for this or donations, then yeah, I wouldn't be able to go above that. But I've already done the math on that, and we are not going to go above that, so we're okay there.
Great, thank you. I'm glad that Councilmember Stewart brought up several questions that I had on it, especially with the in sake of time of how soon, and understanding that staff is dwindling and the longer that we wait. Knowing that we can ask for an extension, but that might not actually help us, is there a way to file and have it amended? Understanding that this is not paying income taxes and that it may be different, is an amendment an option so that we can at least submit something and not be in jeopardy of, oh, whoops, there's no more staff there to process anything?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I will ask the consultants I'm working with and see if we can do that. I don't believe so, but I'm not the tax expert. I'm far from it, so I will ask.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council on this piece? Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And then moving on to
one more, sorry, really quick, one more just quick update on the EV street sweeper work, and then we can pass it.
Yeah, so I'm Tristan Osborne, Operations Manager for Public Works. Here to just do a quick overview of our process of evaluating a fully electric sweeper. So in an effort to meet all of the climate action goals and the ESAP and various initiatives we have and recommendations in the fleet study, we've Streets Division and Fleet Division have been collaborating to identify a fully electric sweeper. So what we've done is we've cast a wide net, evaluated quite a few different manufacturers, sizes, different vehicle types and everything, and we kind of narrowed it down to 2 different manufacturers and makes. And so we set up 2 month-long tests with those so that we could get a full use case on them. Any piece of equipment or tool that you get looks good on one day or a couple hours when they let you look at it. But we really got to run these through the paces to see how they would function in a full operational environment. And so we came out of it with a recommendation to our leadership to go with a Elgin Broom Bear. It's fully electric. So a couple of the reasons we decided to go that route is it's a full-size sweeper. It's a little bit different technology than the current sweepers that you may have seen service the city right now. It's capable of picking up more larger debris. The WashDOT uses them for kind of the larger debris on the freeways. So we decided to go that route because it allows us to pick up some of that heavier debris, especially post-bomb cyclone. That would have been a very handy tool for us to have to speed up that cleanup effort. And it also supports some of our future in-house kind of paving work to be able to sweep up after some of the grinding and milling operations there. And this particular unit was the only one that could actually make it through a 10-hour shift. So we ran it fully charged, and it came back at the end of a 10-hour shift with about 30% left. So with current charging capabilities that we have at our MLC, and then obviously when it gets through the rebuild process, we'll definitely have enough power out there, but in the gap, we'll be able to keep something like that charged and run it through until the new facility's made. So that's kind of the high-level update on that.
Tristan, thank you for being gracious with me. I wasn't trying to skip over you, so thank you for that. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Council Vice President Forsyth.
Just real quick, temperature range when we tested it, making sure that we were considering we'll get better in the summer and worse in the winter. Just one thing to throw out there.
Yeah, we tested them in the shoulder season, so yeah, pretty optimal. So we know there's going to be some decline and increase there.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, both of you, and always, Ms. Liebeck, thank you. Going on to now our final item of the day is the job order contracting, JOC, introduction, and alternative delivery method for smaller public works projects. Joining us is Director Burt. Maybe? Nope. Director Burt is going to hang back today, and we have Eric Dawson. Mr. Gibbs, are you joining us? Okay, Mr. Gibbs is here for emotional support. We appreciate that. Mr. Dawson, thank you. Wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll have a quick but informative discussion.
There we go.
Job order contracting. So after today, we will be proposing a job order contract for council's approval, and we thought it would, since this is new to the city of Redmond, it would be good to have a little informative session on what it is and give you a chance to ask questions about it. So I've got a few notes, and then if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. Job order contracting, or JOC, is a type of on-call construction contract. It's allowed by state law, one of the alternative delivery methods. Typically, task orders on something like this will be pretty small, much smaller than the typical construction contracts we bring you. State law limits those task orders to $500,000. However, I think for us in Redmond, what we're going to propose is anything over $300,000, we would still approach council again, since that's typically our threshold. And then our contract that we're going to bring has a 10% MBE and a 5% WE goal, so we want to continue to maintain our desire to help those out. We selected a contractor based on qualifications and a small bit of the price proposal. They're basically proposing their overhead and profit that they would apply to a standard set of prices. When it comes around to pricing the tasks, we use something called the RS Means Price Book. It's an industry recognized standard. It contains, there's a lot of volumes to it, and it contains kind of default prices for just about every type of contracting work you could ever think of. And the way that the task orders are priced is that they go to the means book, they select the different aspects of what we're asking them to do, we add those up, and then they apply what they call the contractor's coefficient, which is really that overhead and profit, and that comes up with our task order work. On a JOC contract, 90% of the work has to be subcontracted, and that's a part of the state law in order to make sure that this type of work continues to be distributed and it doesn't get kind of funneled down to one particular contractor. If we need it, the JOC contractor can help us with design. So the JOC contractor that we've selected does have design services if we want that, or we can also go about it on our own and bring something to them. A lot of JOC task orders are typically the things that we can kind of walk into the site and stand there and talk about what we want done and really do the bulk of the design just like that. But if we do need more specific design, we can also do that. What are the advantages of JOC? Mostly speed and flexibility. This is going to allow us to get a whole lot of smaller projects done much quicker. We're going to take care of all the administrative part right here, and then we can move on to quick task orders. And then the JOC contractors that are successful, including the one that we have selected, they have a specific group that just does JOC contracting. So they're really agile. They're ready to move when we ask them to. They're ready to kind of price things really quickly, and so we should have a lot of speed with this. And then the other advantage is that we are getting that contractor input kind of at the design stage. So when we have an idea of something we want done, or when we have a problem that's come up, we can actually bring not only a designer if we need it, but we can bring a contractor out and we can have a pretty quick, productive discussion on what's the best, quickest way to fix something. So we get that different type of input that we don't always get when we're just dealing with designers. We plan to use most of this for facilities projects. That seems to be the best way to do it. We can do civil projects, we can do outdoor projects when necessary, but it's likely going to mostly be facilities, at least at the start. And then lastly, just to let you know, since we wrote the memo that you have in your packet today, we did select Forma, a well-known building contractor, as our job contractor that we'll be proposing. They've done a few projects for the city. They're also well-known as a seasoned job contractor. So it's somebody that's safe, that's going to give us the kind of advice that we need as we move forward. And then lastly, before questions, we can return to another committee meeting with the actual JOT contract if you'd like to see that. The other option is if you want to be a little quicker, we could just come back on a consent agenda, get a new memo, and present the contract in that fashion. So that's what I have.
Wonderful, thank you. Council President and then Council Vice President.
Yeah, thank you. I saw in the memo it said you were planning to come back to Planning and Public Works. I would definitely like to see that so we could have some more time for Q&A. Two things that I would be interested in getting some information on is some examples of past types of projects that would be applicable to something like this. It's hard to be able to assess the impacts of moving to a JOC process without kind of understanding some examples of how this would be applicable. Secondly, there's a note about the minority business enterprise and women business enterprises in terms of aspirational goals, and I'd love in the follow-up conversation to discuss whether we can put those, we could have those instead of aspirational goals be certain minimum requirements on subcontractors.
Wonderful, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. In addition to Council President's comments, I support those comments and just want to have a brief touch on, you touched on advantages. What are some potential disadvantages? Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Steve. Councilmember Fields.
I'm going to have to change my name.
My apologies. Thank you for being gracious.
I had a very similar question as to Councilmember Forsyth, and I didn't hear the answer. It was, I'll get back to you. Was that the answer?
For the disadvantages?
Yeah, what are some of the disadvantages? I mean, I can tell you some from my perspective. You know, there's a risk of higher prices. There's potential lack of transparency. There's potential for scope creep. I mean, away from the traditional getting the bids and holding people accountable through the bid process. So I understand the advantages, and I'm not saying the disadvantages are a game stopper, but I would like to hear at some point how you're going to mitigate or avoid some of the risks, including maybe even limited innovation as, you know, one of the advantages of going out for bid is you get new ideas and fresh ideas. So I like the efficiency. I understand the advantages, but I do think we have to be careful to prevent the disadvantages. And that's my question.
So I think we could have a more involved discussion about that when we come back for planning.
On May 6th, absolutely.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. I'll look forward to continuing this conversation at the next committee meeting. I really appreciate the suggestion to see more about the kinds of projects that would be applicable for this. And I had a similar question on the equity goals. I don't know if we're able to make them requirements, so it'll be great to hear. But also, the goals themselves are humbling in how small they are. But you all know the work and you know the market, and so I would be curious to hear a little bit more about if there's room to increase those goals as well. And my other question for the next committee meeting on this is making the connection between the recent study session conversation on the council signing authority. It looks like you have this proposal in for things that 300,000 or more would come back, that if we could connect that to the other decisions we made around council's kind of touch base on these projects, I think that would be just helpful to make sure we've connected those two conversations really clearly. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions at this time? We're looking forward to doing a deeper dive on May 6th in our committee meeting then. Mr. Dawson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We have now reached the end of today's agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned.